Hi there, I'm Wendy McCallum, burnout and alcohol coach and wellness expert, and you're listening to Bite Size Balance, where everyday extraordinary women share their stories, expertise, and wisdom, all in the name of lifting each other up and creating a better life by design. Whether it's wellness, career, relationships, food, alcohol, mindfulness, hormones, or parenting, we talk about all things women's balance. If your life looks great on paper, but it still feels like something's missing, you're in the right place. Welcome to Bite Size Balance.
Hello, I am coming to you with a little solo podcast today, not a really long one, but I really felt like an imperative to record something today. It felt like I needed to do this because today is my 50th birthday and I woke up feeling very different from how I thought it would feel today. I have been dreading turning 50 for an entire calendar year since I turned 49. And for those of you who've been listening to this podcast and listened to many of the episodes in season one, you'll know that last year was a tough year for me. So my 49th year was tricky because it was during what I am calling MOVID, which means COVID combined with very sudden menopause. And I turned 49 about 5 months after my last period. So I was already in full menopause really at 48. I didn't know that for sure yet. When I turned 49, it had been months and months since I'd had my last period and my hormones had just plummeted. And I was really struggling with a lot of symptoms as a result of that very rapid change in hormones for me. So there was that going on. And then combined with that was this just incredible dread about the fact that I was going to be 50 soon. And just all of, I think, the typical fears that go along with that for many women around what's that going to be like? I'm so old. This is the beginning of the end. I mean, I really fell into every trap last year. And while I talked a good game on this podcast, in the back of my mind, I was doing this countdown to 50 and it was not positive. And for the last month or so, people have been saying, how old are you? And I've been saying 50 in an effort to just wrap my head around it. And then I found myself resisting that in the final 7 or 8 days before my actual birthday. I've been like, no, I'm actually just 49. It's another 4 days or another 5 days before I'm 50. And then today the day came and I was, expecting it to be a really, really challenging day, to be honest. And guess what? I woke up and I feel fantastic. And so that caused me to think I need to record a podcast about this because my guess is I'm not alone in this. And that this feeling has happened to other women around their 50th birthdays. And you know what? I was reflecting back on it and I had the same feeling of dread when I was turning 30. Although when I turned 30, it was about something different. Then it was about the fact that I hadn't met this timeline that I had set for myself as a type A overachiever who thought everything needed to be done on a schedule and according to some kind of a grand plan. I was really intentional about starting a family before I was 30. And so when I turned 30, I wasn't even married yet, let alone having kids. And I felt like I really was way behind the game. I remember feeling pressure around that when I turned 30. So being very dissatisfied with myself and where I was in my life. And then of course, my 30s were a complete blur. They were a combination of moments of incredible joy, but also moments of incredible heartbreak. That's really how I would characterize my 30s. It was a series of highs, really high highs and really low lows. And then a whole lot of in-between days that were, pretty good for the most part, but a lot of them are a blur to me because I was so exhausted. If you listened to this podcast last season, you know that my kids were born 7 months apart and that getting to a place where I had a family involved quite a bit of heartbreak. And then there was quite a bit of heartbreak after that. So that was my 30s. I really I left law. I was recovering from burnout. I was raising these 2 little kids and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I remember 40 having the same dread. So when 40 was coming around, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what is this life I've created for myself? What do I have for myself? I have these kids who are fantastic and I have a good marriage and I have, the home and the stability and health and all of these things that I thought if I just had them, that my life would feel whole. And I still feel like something's missing and I don't know what that is. And I spent my 40s trying to figure that out. And my 40s were really full of all kinds of stuff. The first half of my 40s was really me stuck and kind of wallowing because I wasn't at a place yet with my kids where I could actually really fully commit to my career. I was still very much in parenting mode with them. And I wanted to be, that's where I wanted to be then. But at the same time, I was feeling pulled because I knew there were things I wanted to do with my career that I had not done yet. And so that was a tough time. And I think that led to an over-reliance on alcohol as kind of the one thing that I had for me, was kind of my little treat or reward at the end of the day. And as you know, if you have listened to any of the episodes around alcohol, in particular my alcohol story, you know that at some point the scales tipped and it became really clear to me that alcohol was not serving me anymore and it was actually creating incredible anxiety. And I needed to figure out how to change that. That was in my mid 40s that started. And by the time I was about just over 46, I made the decision to try an alcohol experiment for 30 days. And that led to me making the decision with a lot of work. This was not an easy thing, but making the decision to try living alcohol free. And I'm now 3.5 years or so into that. So that was a big change that happened in my mid to late 40s. And that changed a lot for me. That led to really a domino effect in my life. Removing alcohol opened up a whole world of possibilities to me that I had no idea was available or was being hindered or masked or hidden, I guess, by alcohol. But that led to all kinds of possibilities for me. And this is when I really started thinking, wait a second, I can actually create a really incredible life for myself. Life isn't over yet. And I started the work of trying to put those pieces in place. And I've been working really hard for the last few years to do that. I have been, doing different things in my career, including getting a new coaching certification through This Naked Mind, which now allows me to coach women who are looking to change their relationship with alcohol. And I absolutely love doing that. And that's a huge piece of my practice now, along with my burnout practice. And also started this podcast, obviously, and have done all kinds of other great things. However, I still felt like approaching my 50s, like somehow 50 was like the end of a really big chapter, and there was not that much coming after it. It felt like a punctuation mark in my life and more like a period than a colon is the best way to describe it. And I was really terrified about it. I felt like, I think in my 40s, there was a lot of me thinking I have to represent the 40s properly. Like I really need to be a great ambassador for women in their 40s. I need to, take care of myself and do all the things I need to do in my career and be a really amazing parent of teens on top of that. And, stay well and fit and healthy and all the rest of it, and just be this great ambassador. And by the time I got to like 48, 49, I was feeling like that was a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure at 48 or 49 to rep the 40s, the way that I could rep the 40s when I was 40, 41, 42. So anyway, going into my 50s, just was not feeling good about the number 50, was feeling really, really stressed about it. And as I said at the beginning of this podcast, I woke up this morning feeling totally different than what I thought I was going to feel. And what I feel today is a huge sense of relief that I'm out of that waiting game, that countdown, that crazy clock that I felt like I was on last year. And I'm actually now 100% living an independent life. It's a weird feeling. I mean, my kids obviously still need me. They're 17 and I'm not married and I have lots of other family relationships and responsibilities, but I feel weirdly free and independent as someone who's 50. And I cannot really describe that any better than that. That's my best articulation of the way I'm feeling this morning. I'm feeling like I'm repping 50 really great. There's a whole lot less pressure to rep 50 than there was to rep the 40s, I'll tell you. And I'm really excited about what this decade is going to bring me. I feel like on reflection, which I'm doing a lot of in the last couple of days, I officially turn 50 today. It is my birthday. It's August 23rd when I'm recording this. But we had a party last night, which was super fun, that my husband organized for me. And I did a lot of reflecting leading up to that, and have been thinking about the fact that really what I was doing in my 40s was building a foundation for my 50s. I was really building the base that I needed to be free in my 50s and to start doing all the things that I need to do and want to do. And the reason I really wanted to record this podcast is because I wanted to put it out there publicly that I am committing in my 50s, especially in this 50th year, I am committing to doing and trying all of the things that might be fun. And it doesn't matter whether I am actually going to be good at those things or not. I'm going to try them anyway. I've already started this. If you follow me on social media, you will have seen that I tried pickleball starting last week. My 75-year-old mom, 47-year-old sister, and 17-year-old daughter and I rented out a pickleball court, got ourselves some pickleball equipment, watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to play pickleball, and finally went and played pickleball. You might remember that last season, I interviewed Lindsay Doyle about her amazing book, photo book around women in sport. And during the course of that interview, I said to Lindsay, there's one thing I really want to try that I haven't tried yet, and it's pickleball. And I kind of semi-committed to doing it. Well, I did it. I have finally started playing pickleball. I have the gear and we had a blast. We played doubles the first time we played. Then I went back with my mom and played a singles match with her, which was really fun. And we're going to keep doing it. We're really excited about it. And now I'm like telling other people to come and play with me. So I would love to get more women playing this game because it's really, really fun. And who knows, maybe it'll lead to tennis for me. Maybe it won't. Pickleball is similar to tennis, but played with completely different equipment and on a smaller court. So maybe it'll lead to tennis. I don't know. I'm really happy with pickleball right now. I think on my list of fun things to try is tennis. So I probably will try that this year, but I have lots of things that I was afraid to try in case I failed at them in my 40s that I am hell-bent on trying in my 50s. So this is 50 for all of you listening. Anybody who is about to turn 50, who has just turned 50, who is dreading turning 50, who remembers dreading turning 50, this podcast is for you. I bet there are other women out there who felt the way I did in the last couple of years of my 40s, which was just kind of a feeling of doom and then a lot of pressure to somehow, make all of this change and achieve all of these things before I turn 50. And, guess what? I didn't get half of the things done that I wanted to get done. But what I see now in hindsight, it's only been a few hours since I turned 50, so I don't have the benefit of very much hindsight. But what I can see now when I look back on the latter half of my 40s is that I was really building this base for my 50s. And I feel really great about that because I feel like I did a lot of really important work and experienced a lot of great personal growth in my 40s. It's going to make my 50s pretty amazing. And I'm actually really very excited for what's to come. Now, for those of you who are listening thinking, oh, that's great, Wendy, that you did all of that in your late 40s. I didn't get a chance to do that. And I'm in my 50s already. And I feel like I have so many things I need to do. I feel like I'm behind. I want to say to you, no worries. You can do that now. I don't believe that there's a cap on personal growth. I don't think we cap out as humans and this is the best we can be. I think personal growth is something that happens continuously over the course of our lifetimes, as long as we want it to, and as long as we stay aware and mindful. And if you're thinking right now, listening to this, oh, there's things I want to do, celebrate that because that is awareness. And as I've said many times on this podcast, awareness is that critical step. We need to have awareness, as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes, to admit to ourselves and get some clarity around the places where we're not doing as well as we'd like to be doing. Without that awareness, we don't ever make any positive change. So celebrate it if you're feeling it right now. If you're thinking, oh, here's a list of a few things that I really want to change, some areas where I really want to grow. Great. Write them down, choose one area, and then pick one small step that you can take now to get you closer to where you want to be in that area. And just work on that over and over and over again until it feels like that's become almost automatic in your life. And be prepared to change the way you go about doing that in order to make it happen. You have to be stubborn in your goals, but flexible in your methods. This is something I learned in my 40s. You have to learn how to be flexible in your methods. If you think there's one way to do something, you're basically setting yourself up for failure. Because even if that one way was the right way for you in the early days of making that change, because life is what life is and life gets lifey, that is not going to be the way to do it forever. You're going to need to change your methods along the way in order to keep some consistency with your habits. So if you are thinking, I didn't make all that change in my 40s. That's okay. You can absolutely start now. And, I'll still be making change. I've got so many things I still want to do and accomplish and learn and change and get better at and let go of in my 50s. But I am not feeling nearly as doomsday and depressed as I thought I would be. I'm not feeling doomsday and depressed at all, to be perfectly honest. Again, the reason for this podcast. So this is 50, you guys. I'm also going to commit to doing a regular installment of this podcast celebrating 50 this year. So there will be regular installments where I talk about my own experiences as a 50-year-old. I'll probably have Sarah Baillie on for some of those because she is in her early 50s as well. And I know she's kind of experiencing the same thing as me, and that she's starting to try some of the things that maybe before she resisted a little bit. And she is really, I think, committed to having some more fun. So maybe it'll be Sarah, but I also think I'll interview other women with interesting stories to tell about how they're going through their 50s. So this is 50 is going to be a regular installment of this year's podcast, and I'm excited about that. But I wanted to tell you what my experience with being 50 has been so far. Again, very early days. And also just hopefully wanted to start the shift mentally for some of you who are not 50 yet, or for those of you maybe who are in your 50s and are still feeling pretty down about the fact that you're in your midlife. I think this might be the best decade for all of us yet. And what I know for sure is that it won't be unless we decide it's going to be. So we have to put some intention into that and actually do the things to make it the best decade. Otherwise it'll just slip by. And you know what? My 30s slipped by and my 40s slipped by, and I am so committed to not having that happen in my 50s. Now, the other thing that I'm struggling with a little bit this year, as you may know, is that my children are going into grade 12 this year, which means that after this year, they will both be flying the coop. They have both said out loud that their goal is to not live at home anymore after next year and to pursue various things in their education. So I'm preparing myself to be an empty nester. And that's part of the motivation behind this whole try all the fun things this year, because I want to try to pre-fill my basket in terms of that space that I know is going to be left empty when they leave for me. That is going to be the space that was taken up by active mothering. And of course, I know I'm still going to be mothering and they could come home, and who knows how this is all going to play out. But I do know that something will shift in a major way next year when they graduate from grade 12. And I want to do my best to fill up a bucket full of joy that I can dip into when things get tough, because they will get tough. I mean, I still remember when the two of them went to primary on the same day, because of course my kids are in the same grade, and I didn't get there's no buffer built in with, one kid leaving and then still have another kid at home for a couple of years. And then the next kid goes to kindergarten. I just dropped them both off the same day. And for the last 5 years, it had been all about them and me and them. And we were kind of just me and them. It was like a word, me and them, just one word, one entity. And then I dropped them off at school and I was left with me, and I did not know who the hell I was. And that was the beginning of my personal growth journey. That was the beginning of me starting to take back some responsibility for my independent life. And of course, you didn't get very much chance to be independent when my kids were young. And it really isn't until the last couple of years that I've realized that I'm now at the place where I can start acting on some of that work that I've done. But that was tough when they left that day. And there was a huge void for me in terms of the days, but they still came home after school and I still got to be a mother, and I got to make them dinner and breakfast the next morning and make sure they did their homework and all the rest of it. And that's going to disappear for me. And I know that many of you know what that feels like. And I know that many of you are anticipating the same thing with your kids, or are already there as you're listening to this podcast. So that's coming up, and I'm going to do my best this year to pre-fill my joy bucket so that I've got a little bit of a reserve there that I can draw on. I think that's all I wanted to say today. I know this probably feels like a bit of an odd podcast episode, but it was important for me to come on the day of my birthday and basically say, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And I made this up to be something really, really big and really, really awful. And it actually doesn't feel even a tiny bit that way. So if you're dreading it right now, let that go. No need. It's actually pretty cool. I actually feel like I'm feeling pretty liberated here and I'm ready to go. I can't wait to see what happens. Again, if you're someone who is new to me, new to this podcast, and you don't know much about what I do, I am a burnout coach with a kind of focus on helping women who are gray area drinkers. So women who are drinking a little more than they would like to be, but do not identify as alcoholics, maybe don't even identify as problematic drinkers, but just know that it's not serving them anymore. Just have a feeling that their relationship with alcohol is really not doing them any favors anymore. I help them make change, because even if you're not an alcoholic or addicted to alcohol, it doesn't mean that it's easy to change your drinking patterns, because alcohol is an addictive substance for all of us. And so it can be really tricky, and it's okay to ask for help. And that's what I do. So that's me. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, okay, Wendy, I didn't make any of the changes that you made in your 40s. I haven't built this base for myself for change. And I'm already in my late 40s, or I'm in my 50s. And I feel like I'm a little bit behind the game here. It's okay. Like I said, start now. You can start making change anytime. Really great place to start is my website. So if you just go to wendymccallum.com, there's a little tab that says Learn with Wendy. If you go to that page, you're going to see a lot of free resources that I offer. There are free resources in relation to burnout. There are free resources in relation to alcohol, and there are free resources in relation to hormones. And you can go and get any or all of the resources that you think might be a helpful place for you to start. So that's a good place to kind of begin. So that's wendymccallum.com, and it's the Learn with Wendy page, and it's wendymccallum.com. And of course, if you're just new to this podcast, you can go back and listen to the archived episodes from season 1, which was a fantastic season. And we have lots more in store for you as the season progresses. Dr. Sarah Baillie will still be my regular co-host. She's not on every episode, but she'll be here regularly. We have amazing conversations. She will also this year be helping me to interview some guests, which I think is going to be really cool. And we have some great guests lined up for this year's podcast. So this is 50, my friends. And I am really looking forward to going through it with you. I will see you next time. Hey there, it's Wendy.
And Sarah. Does it feel like your body's betraying you?
Maybe your period's all over the map, you're experiencing mysterious weight gain, increased anxiety, unpredictable mood swings, hot flashes or night sweats, low libido, or sleepless nights?
Join us for one of our intimate midlife masterclasses.
We've got the inside scoop on why all this weird and annoying stuff is happening and what you can do to start feeling better right now.
It's the perfect introduction to perimenopause, menopause, and burnout.
Get informed, get empowered, take back your midlife. Details and registration can be found at wendymccallum.com/masterclass. That's WENDYMCCALLUM.com/masterclass.